So this is the Genealogy Jumpstart. Today we're going to be talking all about researching in newspapers. This is our second part of newspapers because there's just so much information. The first part 2 weeks ago, we covered more how to deal with determining a newspaper name and how to research newspapers offline because of course not all the newspapers are digitized online. But today we're going to focus on all those online resources. If you did miss part one, we do have a YouTube channel where you can watch that recording and look at the handout or download the handout, print the handout from the first session. So we looked at this last time, 2 weeks ago, but this is kind of our little flow chart of how to do newspaper research. So like I mentioned, we would determine the newspaper name and followed our offline research strategy in session one. Today, we're going to focus all on this online research, and we're going to explore some newspaper databases free through the library, as well as other paid sites that we can explore newspapers on. So, of course, when you're researching newspapers, the easiest place, the fastest, and usually the cheapest is going to be online databases. Of course, with newspapers, every newspaper site is different. They all need to be checked. There's no one site that you can go to learn about all the newspapers and what's digitized. You have to go check all of them. So we're going to go through a lot of them today that I'm going to show you. Some of them are free. Some might require a paid subscription, or you might be able to access through your local library. Of course, the newspapers that are going to be on there are going to vary. The coverage of the dates that those newspapers cover is going to vary. So you just need to go and check each newspaper individually. Of course, newspapers are constantly being added to these sites. It's really a nice thing that more and more newspapers are coming online for us genealogists to be able to explore. So if you go on a site and see the newspaper you're looking for is not yet digitized, check back in a few weeks or a few months and maybe it'll be digitized. Like I mentioned, not every newspaper is digitized and available online, or it might be on a different newspaper site because there are so many more newspaper sites than what I can cover today. If I covered every single newspaper site, we'd be here until tomorrow. So if you can't find those newspapers online, again, refer back to that session one on newspapers where we talked all about how to research those offline, how to look for the newspapers, microfilm in the different libraries and archives that there might be. So some of the main online databases for newspapers are going to be newspapers.com, Newspaper Archive, Chronicling America, and Genealogy Bank. Those are kind of the big four most popular sites that have a lot of newspaper titles. And we'll talk a little bit more about each of these and I'll show you a live demonstration of them. But these sites kind of have the most coverage. These are, if you're looking for a specific newspaper, these are the four I would start with. We at the library also have several free newspaper databases. For those who are joining us virtually, of course, check with your local libraries for any additional databases you might have, or even those in person who are library card holders with APL. Of course, there's lots of other libraries that have different resources than ours, even in these communities. So if you live in Wisconsin, for example, you can get a library card to any library except for a few like Madison and Milwaukee, as long as you're a Wisconsin resident. For me, for example, I of course have an Appleton Public Library card, that makes sense. I also have one for Brown County up in Green Bay, and I have one for Manasha because those are separate systems from ours, and they have different databases than what we have at APL. We're of course talk about a few other resources that you can look at that have additional newspapers on there as well, some free, some paid. So first up is that newspapers.com. So we have newspapers.com library edition here that gives us free access to, but it's a little bit different than a paid personal subscription. So there's kind of two different ways you can access newspapers.com, either through a paid subscription on your own or through the library edition, which you can access for free. Of course, the paid edition is going to give you access to more newspapers and more pages within those newspapers, or maybe a longer date coverage for certain newspapers. Unfortunately for us in Appleton, the Post-Crescent, which is our main newspaper, is only available on the paid edition. We at the library have no control over what they put on the library edition. No matter how many times I ask them to put an Appleton paper on the library edition, they don't listen to me. But hopefully maybe one day they will. But for now, we don't have access to it unless we have a paid subscription to newspapers.com. In order to get to the library edition, you want to go through our website or through BadgerLink. So I think I mentioned BadgerLink another time. It's a statewide resource that libraries around the state can get access to these databases completely for free through our state funding. So you can go there, even if you don't have an APL library card, you can go through the BadgerLink site and just type in your Wisconsin zip code. Or if you have a library card to somewhere else in Wisconsin, you can type in that library card to verify that you're a Wisconsin resident, and then it will give you access to it. Otherwise, if you just type in newspapers.com in Google, it's going to say, hey, we want you to pay for this site. It's not going to bring you to the library edition. I've also got a link for you in your handout that talks to you a little bit more about newspapers.com. So this is the BadgerLink site. Even if you don't live in Wisconsin or, if you have access to newspapers.com library edition through a different service, you're welcome to explore these training resources. It kind of has this newspaper resource guide where it tells you about the different things that they have. It's got a title list in here. It's got some video trainings that you can watch, because if we spent an hour on newspapers.com, that would be a lot. There's only so much time I can spend on each of these without giving you information overload. So feel free to explore this on your own to look at additional training things on using the site. The library edition, thankfully, is a world collection, but on this world collection, it gives us access to the US, Canada, Australia, England, Ireland, and Puerto Rico. If you do have a paid newspapers.com subscription, they do have a few more countries and a few more papers internationally than they do on the library edition, but again, for free, you can't really complain on what you have access to. So again, there's kind of two different types of a paid subscription. If you are thinking of, hey, I really want to get the most bang for my buck, I really need to research these newspapers, they have a basic subscription and a publisher's extra subscription. So you can pay for these either monthly or annually, and it ranges from $8.49 a month for the basic up to $79.99 for 6 months of the publisher's extra. They do sometimes run deals though. So watch for those. But for comparison, the library edition has 240 plus million pages across 24,600 plus newspapers. Whereas if you had that paid basic subscription, you'd get access to a few more pages, so about 286 million, and then you'd have more papers, so it has a little bit more than 25,000. But that publisher's extra, that's going to give you the most access to newspapers, so that's why they charge a little bit more for it. It's over 1 billion with a B, pages across 28,600 papers. So again, you can go through and actually see what papers they have and what dates those cover before you decide, hey, I want to do the basic, or I want to do the publisher's extra, or I just want to stick with the free library edition. So it's kind of determined on what newspapers you're looking for, what state or international country, what date you need to determine which version you want to work with. If you're also somebody who has Ancestry and Fold 3, Ancestry has a whole huge subscription where you can have all three services and get a little bit of a discount. So if you wanted to do that, you're welcome to do that. If you don't want to pay for that subscription though, of course, use the free library edition. On their paid version, they do have free access weekends, usually around holiday weekends. So President's Day weekend, Mother's Day weekend, I think some others throughout the year. I can't remember if they did it for Father's Day or if they will for Veterans Day, but just kind of always be checking, especially around those holiday times. Where they let you use it completely for free for that whole weekend. So search as much as you want and save as many newspaper articles as you want for that weekend while it's free. They also offer discounts, so sometimes you might see it 20% off or 30% off. from that monthly or that annual cost. They also have a 7-day free trial. So again, if you are somebody who, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to use this a whole lot or if it's going to be worth my money, go ahead and try that 7-day free trial. Get as much as you can on there and then cancel if you decide you don't want to pay for a full subscription. Thankfully, the searching between the library edition and the paid edition is completely the same. There are a few features in the library edition where you do need to have an account for, but you can sign up for a free account through the library edition. You just need to, create a username and a password, and then you can do things like save clippings and save a search or follow a newspaper, which are some features that you can access even through the library edition. So now I'm going to do a quick demonstration of how to use the library edition. So again, we want to start at the APL library site. So if you go to apl.org, click on eLibrary. One of the options here is newspapers. So you can go ahead and narrow down to newspapers if you know for sure you're looking for newspapers. That'll give you then an A to Z listing of a lot of our newspaper databases here. And then of course the newspapers.com library edition is right there. So now I'm officially in the library edition. So from here, we've got a spot where we can enter a keyword, a spot where we can enter a date, you don't have to, and a spot where you can enter a location, again, you don't have to. So for example, I could just pop in my last name and see what pops up. So now I get all these listings. So there's different ways to sort over here. Again, I could add a date or a location, or I could select a location over here. The darker the red, the more results there are. So you can see Wisconsin and Pennsylvania have a lot of results for this name that I put in. I can also sort a certain way, so by best match or by the newest issues or the oldest issues, or by the date it was added to newspapers.com. There's other filters like, oh, I can see what's been added in the last few months or a certain day of the week. I don't really use those filters a whole lot. You can also narrow by newspaper name. So if you know, oh, I'm looking for this, newspaper in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, I can just start typing that newspaper name and it would filter out those results for me. And then there's different categories. So if you're looking for specific things related to accidents and emergencies or a sports related thing, you can narrow down. Or if you're just looking for obituaries, you can do that as well. Otherwise, as you see a result that you want to look at, this kind of gives you a little snapshot over here. I can see what newspaper, what page, what date it's on, what location. And then I can just click on it to be brought into the actual article. So now I can see the article here. I can zoom in, zoom out over here on the side. I see they've got some cool pictures in here and they've got a whole article and it's highlighting on the page where that name appears. Over here, I can also play with the brightness and the contrast. So you see these pictures might be a little difficult to make out, but I can kind of play with this a little bit, just slide it around as much as I want to try to see if I can get it to look a little bit better. And then if I wanted to save this article or print it, what I could do is I could do this print/download. I can decide to do the entire page, so it's going to give me this whole page 5, or I can select a portion of the page. Then it's going to give me this little box, which I can move around and clip the whole article that I want to have. So if this is just the part of the article, now I can save it as a PDF, I can save it as a JPEG, or I can print it. The great thing about the PDF, I'll show you, is it actually gives you source information on it. So if I open it up, I can see that article, and now I can see that newspaper name, the location, that date, and that page on it. So when I print this off and stick it in my genealogy files, or if I stick it in my digital files, now I know where it came from. I don't have to also write that source like I would with a JPEG, for example. And then of course, the back button will get us back to those results. If you want to go explore elsewhere in this newspaper, you can go page to page. So these arrows down here. I can also select a different date or enter a different page number. So say maybe I want to look at a different issue. I can select a year over here, select a month over here, and then select the date, select a page, all that kind of stuff that you can do. I can even go and see what other newspapers they might have in this area. So say maybe I want to search just in this newspaper. What I can do is that I can then do my search right over here. So I could put like Johnson, for example. And now it's just searching in the Aiken County Rambler for that name. And now I can see all the results just in that newspaper. If we go back to the home, I want to show you if you want to do more than just a last name, you want like somebody's first name and last name. What I usually do is I put quotation marks around it so that the newspaper site knows to search that exact phrase and not every instance of that first name and every instance of the last name. So I could do that. And now you can see all those results. So you can see they're showing it together. So every instance is going to show it together. And again, I could decide, hey, I want to narrow it down to just Wisconsin. So I can click on the map over there, or I can pop Wisconsin in the locations. And then again, I can look into these newspapers and see, oh, here's an information about his death. And it actually already has a box around it, which means somebody already clipped this article. So what I can actually do is I can actually, I can save it to my Ancestry if I sign in with a free account, or I can clip it and save it as well. You can also search more than just names in here. So I have also searched things like addresses. So like if I do 123 Main Street, this is another way, like if you're researching the history of your house or a location where your family might have lived, you can see all the different matches that they would have on that address. Also up here, I wanted to show you the Browse tab. So this allows you just to start with a location. So again, I could start with the United States. I could narrow it down to a specific state, a specific location within that state, and then see what newspapers are in existence. So if you know your ancestors lived in a specific area, you might want to start this way first. And now I can even just search for their name right in here. So I could do that name that I'm looking for and then click search. And now it's just searching within that specific location without me having to put it all in there. There's also a spot where you can see what newspapers they have. So if you go to the papers tab, this is where you can filter by paper or by location title. So say for instance, I want to search for Menasha. I can click on that and now I can see, oh, they have 2 Menasha related titles in here. And then again, I could click on that and then search within that newspaper right here. If I go to browse, I can see all the different years that they have for that title and see if it might include the years that I'm looking for where I know my family lives in this area at that time. Any questions about newspapers.com library edition? I know that was a very short tidbit. Yeah.
On the searches, you use Booleans?
You can use Boolean. So if you aren't familiar with Boolean, it's a fancy like librarian term. But basically what you can do is you can use and, or not. So I could do like George Washington and then not in capital letters. And I'd say not president. So I want a George Washington who wasn't the president. So that's a Boolean search that I could do to get more relevant results. Because if I just put George Washington, I'm going to get way over 1 million results. Obviously, that's not a great example, but that's what popped into my head first. But you can use not right there. You could use and right here. You could use or right there. So if you have a surname that's spelt differently, you might try putting in that a couple different ways. Great question. Any other questions before we move on to the next one? All right. So again, refer back to that Badger Link site too to learn a little bit more about newspapers.com, library edition, and the paid edition. The search and all that function works exactly the same as the library edition. They've also got some getting started videos here on that front page of the library edition if you want to take a look at those. Next up is Newspaper Archive. So several years ago, we at the library used to have a subscription. We unfortunately do not currently. Of course, the cost was a big factor. They do have some Post Crescent on there, but it's very limited and spotty coverage. For a while, it was part of BadgerLink, but every few years, BadgerLink likes to put out calls, and newspapers.com won the last few calls that, maybe we're getting Newspaper Archive back in a few years through BadgerLink, maybe not. But right now, check with your local libraries, which might have a subscription. I know if you are in this Appleton area, the Menasha-Neenah Public Library, which is a different library system than ours, they have a subscription, and it is a US subscription now. Other libraries, sometimes they might just do a state subscription. So I think last year or the year before, the Menasha-Neenah one, they only had Wisconsin newspapers, but now it's a US subscription. Or they might offer a world subscription in the future, or maybe that's only with the paid edition that you can get the world edition. But they do offer individual subscriptions, so similar to newspapers.com, there's that paid version and the library version. You can do a 7-day free trial of that paid version. It ranges from $22.99 a month up to a year that they do. It's $12.99 a month billed all at once. And they do have a special offer going on until the end of the month, which makes it $7.99 a month. So if you're on the fence about subscribing to it, you might want to think about doing it before the end of the month, because then you can get it for less than $100 for a year. This also comes with a subscription to Storied. So I personally haven't played with Story a whole lot, but it's a genealogy site that allows you to capture stories and relationships beyond a traditional family tree. So it's trying to help you publish your family stories and capture them perhaps in a book form as well. They offer that service. So they do have a listing of the newspapers that you can see in the paid edition. I do have this link in your handout. So you can go through and see, hey, do they have the Salt Lake Tribune? Yes, they do. So now I can see where it is, or I can select a specific state and see, hey, here are all the Wisconsin newspapers that they have in this version. And you can also see the date coverage in there. But beware that date coverage can be misleading. So for example, if we look at the Post-Crescent, which is our newspaper, it says the coverage is from 1853 to 1976. It doesn't mean that every issue is included in there. If you look over here at this pages column, it says like 327,000. That's not all of the issues from 1853 to 1976. It's going to be spotty coverage. It might have 3 issues from 1976 and 10 issues from 1952. It's very spotty coverage. It's not complete for every single year. So just be aware that that might be a little misleading for you. Now I'm going to do a live demo using Newspaper Archive through the Menasha Library. So again, if you live local, feel free to go grab a Menasha library card just like I did and go to their site. You need your library card number and your PIN, because of course we're outside of the Menasha Library. So now we're in the site. From here, it's really easy to do that search. So I can do a name search, I can do a keyword search, or I can do a title search. So the newspaper title, for example. Or if the keyword, like maybe I want to do like the moon landing, or some specific business name, or the name of a school I'm looking up, or something like that. Or again, I could do the keyword or the name here. So for example, I could leave that first name blank, or I could put it in, or I can just do my last name here. So similar to newspapers.com that we just looked at, you get the results page here. You can narrow it down by location, by date range. So I can adjust the dates here. Maybe I want 1850 to 2024, and then I can update it over here to weed out some of the results that I don't think are relevant to my family. I can also sort it again by relevancy, or if I want to do the date from new to old or from old to new, especially if you have a lot of results that you know you're going to take some time to go through. I usually like to sort it by date so I can see what's the newest or see what's the oldest. And then now I know where I left off last time I was looking. So just like we did before with newspapers.com, you can click on that page and be brought into that actual issue. And it's going to show you a scan of the newspaper once it loads here. Right at the top, I can see what that newspaper name is. I can see what date it is and what page it is. If it's going to load for me. Come on. Just thinking about it. I'm going to close out of some of these tabs here. Maybe, come on. So you should be able to adjust zooming in, zooming out here. Go back into it, it looks like. See if we can get this one to work. So again, newspaper name, date, page. There we go, this one loaded. So now I can see again highlighted in yellow where it is on the page. I can kind of skim around if I want to see if it's on more than one spot. So it is on more than one spot. Again, I can zoom in, zoom out. I can adjust that brightness, that contrast. I can even tilt the page a little bit if I need to. And then right up here, I can download that image as a PDF file or as a JPEG file, or I can print it here. There's also an option to email it to yourself as well. You can also clip it. One thing that Newspaper Archive does that's a little bit different, you still have that box that you draw around it, but when you clip it, it asks you to like put a summary or a note or choose a specific category. So you might need to do this before it allows you to save it. Because then it's gonna turn up those clippings for everybody else. So I'm not gonna really do it, but that's also an option for you to, you know, play around with this box and save it that way. Just like the other services, you can do that PDF or that JPEG. It will allow you to do that full page, or if you want to just do a snippet of that page, ask you to create a clipping. You can lay it out different ways or zoom in, and then it names it a specific way with that newspaper, date, or page. And then you can include the source information. So you can see down here, it tells me that newspaper name, that date, and that page number and where it's located. So that's another good way to print it or save it with that source information on it. If we go back out here, I also want to show you again under keyword, you can search for a specific thing. So say I want to search for Appleton High School. No, it doesn't allow me to do special characters. So you can't do the quotes. So see, it does list it right up there, but it also says school, 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 Appleton school. So there's over 1.2 million results. So what you could also do is you could edit the search, and then it's going to give you the advanced search options. So right here where I put Appleton High School, I want to maybe select with the exact phrase, and that's like telling it to put quotation marks around it without actually doing it, because for some reason they don't allow it in their searching. I could also do with at least one of these words or without the word. So similar to that Boolean search that we just did in newspapers.com, this is how you would set it up using these specific things in all these boxes. So say I wanted the exact phrase of Appleton High School with at least one of these words. So maybe I want it with the name Johnson. I could do that. In a specific state, if I want it in Wisconsin, because there's Appleton High Schools elsewhere. I could do that and then do my search. Now, instead of 1.2 million, I have 7,000 results. So it's a little bit more manageable. Again, it shows me a little preview kind of over here. and then I could click into it to be brought into that newspaper. Oh, how funny. It says it's unable to find a match of exactly what I was searching for. So sometimes you make it errors like that. I also want to show you can browse by location just like we did on newspapers.com. So right there, browse by location. I can select a specific state. You can see they've got other countries listed here, but this subscription is not a world subscription at this time. The paid edition or maybe other libraries might have a world subscription, but the access that I have right now is just United States. So for example, I could select my state and then I can select my city, for example. And then see, oh, there's only just one result in there. Maybe try a different one. There's 2 different newspapers, and then I could search just right within here. So for example, if I scroll all the way down to Newton, I can see there's a bunch of newspapers. If I just want to search in that location, I can put in that last name of my ancestors and then click search. So now it's narrowing it down to just newspapers titled within Newton, Iowa. And now I can go through all the results and save them. You can also browse by date. So you could search a name here and then browse by date. If you go under publications, this is also where you can see if they have a specific newspaper title without having to go through the location services. So again, I could put in a newspaper name over here. Sometimes it is a little bit slow, so if I put in Post Crescent, see if it takes its time or not. You just have to make sure to click update. But theoretically, it should filter out to just those results. But there you can see there's lots and lots of newspapers here. It gives you an overview of the title, the city, state, what years it covers, how many issues, and when it was last updated. So you can see they're frequently updating it. You know, they've added a paper yesterday, the Salt Lake Tribune, for example. They either updated by adding the whole paper or added a few extra issues. So this is taken forever, so we're just gonna move on, but that's how you would use that. Any questions about Newspaper Archive before we move on? What you online folks? On newspapers.com, can you use wildcards in the search field? Yes, most of these you can use wildcards. So if you're not familiar with wildcards, that's replacing one character or multiple characters. So for example, maybe I wanted to do Christensen. And it can be spelt with an S-O-N or S-E-N or S-A-N. So I could put a question mark in there. So Newspaper Archive does not allow special characters, but newspapers.com does. You can also do a star there, which would assign several characters and not just one character, but this Newspaper Archive does not use that. All right, let's close out all these. All right, so next up is Chronicling America. So last time we talked, we showed a newspaper directory where you can look at different newspapers that are published in a specific area. Also on this website, they have digitized newspapers from all around the United States. They're continually adding more, and the best part is it's 100% free. So you don't even need to be a member of our library. You can use it by just going to the site. If you wanted to see a demonstration of that newspaper directory, refer back to our recording from part 1 where I dive into that. But for the digitized newspapers, they cover between 1756 to 1963. They have over 4,500 titles and over 23 million pages. So hopefully you're going to find something on somebody that you're searching for in those pages that they have. They are changing the look of the site in just a few weeks in August. So right now you can try out the old version and the new version, but new stuff is only being added to the new site, and the old site's eventually going to go away pretty soon. And then the main website is going to direct you to that new site. So of course, I'm going to show you the new site because it's what you need to learn anyhow that you're going to be using as you dive in. So when you first go to Chronicling America, I've got a link to it in the handout, or you can just Google Chronicling America and it will get you there. It says, hey, we're upgrading. August 4th, we're going to get a new version of Chronicling America. So right now, this is the old version. You want to click on that new version, and then they're eventually going to switch it so that the site goes right to this new version. So on this new version, right away, we get an advanced search. So again, we've kind of got that search field where we can select all of the words or any of the words or an exact phrase. They've got a couple different options for you here. So I can just type in that last name. I can also select a state if I wanted to. I can select a specific ethnic background for a specific newspaper. Like if I want just German language newspapers, I can select German on here. Or I can do a specific date range here on the calendar if I wanted to. Or I can just leave it blank and just search that and see what results I get. So if I scroll down now, I can see I've got about just over 5,000 results, and you can see it highlights in this reddish pink color on each of the page, you know, what's in there. I can kind of see a little snapshot. So I say, oh, Joseph Stilp, that sounds like somebody I want to look at. I can just click on it and be brought into that page. I can see the name of the newspaper here, that city and that state, that date that it's featured on, and then the page number is going to be right up here usually. So just like the other sites, I can zoom in, zoom out, I can rotate it, I can play with all the settings here. I can also use my mouse. But now I can see up here that our night watchman at the Munch Brewery in Appleton was taken hostage. How exciting. So now I can save this if I want to. So it's either an image with text, so it's going to give me an actual image plus the actual wording that it has on the text, or I can do a PDF of it where I can, again, save that information to my digital files or print it this way. So this one, it just gives me that whole page. And if I want to download it, I just click go right there. The only thing I don't like about Chronicling America is it just saves it like this. I can't see what newspaper it's from. There's no date or anything on here. So I would need to coordinate that citation and write it down myself. Or next time I go look at this article, I'm not going to remember. Is this from an Appleton newspaper? Is it from a Sheboygan newspaper? Where is it from? So just be aware of that as you're using Chronicling America, that you do need to write down that citation for yourself. If you scroll down here, it kind of tells you a little bit more about the newspaper, where it came from, all that kind of stuff if you want to know that information. Then I can go right back to those search results. Again, I can also sort by a certain way, by title, by date, all that kind of stuff. I can narrow down over here. So again, if I want a specific newspaper title, or if I want a specific date range, I can click on these to narrow it down. And now instead of 5,000 results, I have just over 1,000. So again, play with it as you'd like. I can even narrow it down further than just that decade. I can narrow it down by a specific state. And now I just have those results to work with. I can also clear out the search if I want to go search for somebody completely new. And now it just cleared it all out. Another thing you can do is click on this all digitized titles. And so this is another way that you can see what newspapers are available for a specific location without having to do a search. So for example, I can select a specific state. And I can apply that filter. So now I can see all the Iowa ones. If I wanted to do a specific language or a specific ethnicity, so like example again, if I'm searching for that German specific one or a Danish specific one, I can select that here. And then it's going to show me just kind of an overview of that newspaper title, location, date coverage. You can see what the first issue is, what the last issue is, what language it's in, how many issues they've got on here. And then I can just go right in here and start browsing those digitized issues. So then I kind of get a snapshot, like maybe this is a weekly newspaper, and now I can explore those issues if I would like to. Any questions about Chronicling America? Again, this one's completely free. You don't even have to be a member of our library to explore it. Next up, we've got Genealogy Bank. So this one is a paid subscription one. I don't believe they have a library version, but if they do, somebody correct me. I haven't found a library version or a library that has a library version. The great thing is though, even if you don't have a subscription, you can search the site for free. You do need to have a free account, so you can just create a free account. I just did it a few weeks ago. You can just do that search, but if you try to click on the article, it's going to say, hey, you need to pay us in order to view that article. So what I usually do, because right now I don't have a paid Genealogy Bank subscription, is I search the names and things that I want to search, and then I write down that date of that newspaper name, that page it might be on, and then I go to the library and I access it. So say I'm searching for my Milwaukee ancestors, I might make a list of the Milwaukee newspapers that I want to search. Next time I go down to Milwaukee, I can pull up those articles right on the microfilm and get them for free through the library. If you did want a subscription, they are monthly at $19.95 a month, or you can pay for it by a year. That's $99.90. But they do frequently offer discounts, like I've seen like 40% off or 50% off. They also offer a 7-day free trial if you're interested in trying it out before you buy. On Genealogy Bank, they have over 16,000 big city and small town newspapers with coverage from all 50 states. And the great thing about Genealogy Bank is 95% of the newspapers that they have on the site are exclusive just to that site, meaning you're not going to find it on Newspaper Archive or newspapers.com. It's only available on Genealogy Bank, which sometimes is a good thing, sometimes is a bad thing. It means you need to have another subscription then in order to get access to 95% of the papers. They do also have a title list of what newspapers they have. That I have a link for you in your handout. So you can again see what newspapers they have before you decide, hey, I'm gonna have a subscription for a year or for a month. They've got over 2 billion articles with date coverage of newspapers dating all the way back to 1690. Some newspapers even have coverage from this year already. They also have this great learning center on how the site works, so you can watch these quick little videos to learn more about using the site and how to use it effectively. You don't even have to have an active membership to watch these. So if you're somebody who's thinking about maybe subscribing, but you want to see how the site works a little bit more, you can watch these videos completely for free. If you just go to that help area and click on Learning Center, they've got those videos there for you. So now I'm going to show you how to use it without a paid subscription. So it's just genealogybank.com. I do log in. I have a free account that I have not paid for now. So it's right away, it's saying, hey, pay us. We want you to be a member again. But if I just go up here, how do I do this again? Maybe I just went to Genealogy Bank again after I signed in. Yes, so instead of trying to do that, so just go back to Genealogy Bank. Now I'm signed in already after you've signed in. And now what you can do is you can search for that name. So I'm going to do an ancestor's name. I can again do a specific date range. I can include certain keywords or exclude certain keywords. I can select a specific state. So say I want to do Wisconsin. I'd click on that. I can narrow it down by city or by specific newspapers if I wanted to, or I could just do search. So again, my subscription has expired, but I can still see a little snapshot. Hey, this is about the death of this person. I can see it's in the Green Bay Advocate newspaper. on October 28th of 1897. So now I'm going to write that down and see if I can find somewhere that has microfilm. Maybe they've got it at the Brown County Library in Green Bay. Maybe they've got it at the Wisconsin Historical Society that I can go look at it without paying $100 a month or $100 a year to get access to this. But you can see if I click on it, they're going to say, hey, you owe us money if you want to look at it. So again, that's just an easy way for you to be able to see what relevant results there are without paying for it. If we go up to the browse, you can look at newspapers by state, by title, or by date. So again, this is a way for you to see, do they have access to the specific newspaper I'm looking for? If you have a subscription, you can follow certain states. So like I follow these states where my ancestors live. And when I have a subscription, they would email me and say, hey, we added a new newspaper to New York, or we added a new Michigan newspaper, go check it out. But I could select a state that I'm looking for. And again, I can see all the different results. I can start filtering it by city. So if I wanted to filter by San Francisco, I could do that. And now it's going to show me those titles, the date coverage, how many issues they have. So obviously some of these, they only have a few issues. Some of them, they might have more. So this one has got a lot of coverage. And again, you can browse by title as well. So if you have a specific newspaper title in mind, you can enter that specific title. So say I want like the Milwaukee Sentinel. I can search that specific title, and now it's going to show me any results with those phrases in it. And again, I can see that coverage and how many issues they have. Any questions about using Genealogy Bank? If you do have a paid subscription, you can do all the usual stuff like zooming in, zooming out, clipping it, saving it, all that kind of stuff, printing it. I just can't show you how it works because I don't want to pay $100 for it just to show you guys. All right. Double check if my online folks have any questions here. Doesn't look like it, so we'll move on to the next section. There are lots of other newspapers. So again, those were kind of the big four that we talked about, but there's so many more newspaper titles and newspaper databases that there are available other than those big four. We've got a lot of free ones here through the library. Some you don't even need a library card to access. And for those who don't live in the area, of course, check your local libraries. They might have access to different newspaper databases than what we have. And again, like I mentioned earlier, some libraries offer cards for people who live outside of the area. So in Wisconsin, you can get a card for any of the libraries, except for Madison, Milwaukee, maybe a few others. So you can have more than one library card, and each library has those different databases. So like I mentioned, I have a Brown County card, and with that, I can get access to this ProQuest historical newspaper Wisconsin collection database, which has Post Crescent in it. It's different than Newspaper Archive. It's different than newspapers.com that we have a paid edition for. So again, use your library resources. You can try to get a card for more than one library. For those outside of state, you have to check your state rules and all that. But Wisconsin, we're fortunate here that we can have more than one library card to the different libraries. Of course, other libraries have resources that you don't need to have a card for. They might have an obituary index or other local history resources that are right on their website that you can just search for free. Like if I pull up the Peoria Public Library in Illinois, where my ancestors lived, I can see a bunch of local history resources without even leaving my house or having to travel there and without having a library card there. So again, remember to explore those websites. One of our databases that we have, of course, that we've talked about quite a bit is Ancestry Library Edition. You can only use this one in library use only. They do have some indexes to newspapers. Ancestry also owns newspapers.com. So a lot of the resources that are on Ancestry Library Edition are trying to get you to go to newspapers.com, which you either have to have that paid subscription for or use the library edition. And you want to use them in separate windows. So have newspapers.com library edition up in one window, and then in another window, pull up Ancestry Library Edition. Because if you try to click on that newspapers.com stuff from the Ancestry Library Edition, it's not going to work. They have a great card catalog in Ancestry Library Edition where you can see all their newspaper collections. They've even got some digitized newspapers in the paid version of Ancestry that are tied to not having to have the newspapers.com paid subscription. And it's more than what's in the library edition of Ancestry. And I know we've also talked about Heritage Quest, which is also kind of like the Ancestry version that you can use at home, but there are no newspapers on Heritage Quest. So through the library edition, if we go to the APL website, we can go to the library edition, go to search and click on card catalog. And then to narrow down to the newspaper collections, you can see right here on the left-hand side, newspapers and periodicals. So you can see they have a bunch of newspapers. They've got 186. So you can see they've got some South Australian stuff. They've got some Rhode Island stuff, some Washington, D.C. You can kind of just see the general titles that they have, but you'll see a lot of this newspapers.com indexing. So it's, if you click on it, you know, you can search within this, but then when you try to actually pull up the article, you have to pull it up separately. So I could click on this record and it will tell me, oh, it's in the Post-Crescent on this date, but I can't click on it. I can try to click on it as much as I want to, but it's not going to pull up the article for me. I have to go either have the paid edition of newspapers.com or write down that newspaper title and that date, and then go find it for myself on the microfilm. So there's not a ton of newspapers in here in the library edition, but it could help you at least locate potential articles that you can then search for offline. There's also Fold 3 Library Edition, which we have access to at APL. There are some newspapers on here, which you can access from home. In order to have home access, you do need to have an APL library card. So it has to say Appleton is your, library that you signed up with or that you changed your library to. If you don't know or if it doesn't work, definitely give us a call and we can see about changing it for you. They do, just like the other sites, have a paid version, ranges from $7.95 a month to almost $80 a year. And they also have that all access account through Ancestry where you could have Ancestry, newspapers, and Fold 3 for one large price. But you can search and browse in here, so you can search under that newspaper name or under type, you can select newspapers and see all the databases that they have related to newspapers in Fold 3. We're going to discuss how to use Fold 3 a lot more in our military session, which we'll have at some point next year. Don't have a date yet, but this is more a military specific database, but you can feel free, of course, to explore it for other things or explore on your own. Again, we would go to our APL website and find Fold 3, and we would go to that resource. At this point, if you're accessing it from home, it's going to ask for that library card number. So here, I want to go to search and browse. And under type, if I scroll down here all the way down, there's publication type. So if I click on see all, there's one that says newspapers. And now I can click done and see they've got all these different newspapers in here. So they've got the American Baptist from Louisville, Kentucky. They've got the Bluegrass Blade from Lexington, Kentucky. So you can see all these different newspapers that they have that you can go in and explore. If you click under that title and click under browse, it shows you specific years that they might have, and then specific months, and then specific dates. So now I can go in here and click into this newspaper. So now I can read that newspaper and browse it if I'd like to. You can search within the image, but I don't find that it works very well sometimes. So like that one did. So it will highlight it if it does find it in there, but it's a little iffy on searching. I would kind of try to find the date that I'm looking for first and browse around if that search function doesn't work. I go all the way back out here. Also under the search and browse, what you can do is you can type in a publication name. So say I know for sure I'm looking for the Fort Wayne Gazette. Now I can see, yep, they do have it, and it's got certain dates that I've got in here. And so I can actually just search right within here. So now I can see the specific page numbers and dates that they've got in here and click on it. So there it is right there. Again, I can zoom in, zoom out. I can play with the brightness and contrast in here. I can rotate it if I need to. Under actions, you can download it or print it. If you have your Ancestry account linked to it, you can share it to your Ancestry or share it this way by sharing a link. So I don't recommend doing that. I'd rather download it or print a copy here. Any questions about Fold 3 Library Edition? So again, it has more than just newspapers on there, but that's what we're going to focus on today. Eventually, we'll get to all the awesome military records they have on there when we do the military session. Next up, we've got access to the Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers. So you have to be in Wisconsin to access this. If you summer or winter I would assume you wouldn't summer in Arizona, but if you winter in Arizona, you can't access this. It is tied geographically just to Wisconsin. There is two different parts of the site. So they have a current part of the sites, which when you click on it, it's always defaulted as that current part, which shows you newspapers from 2005 to 90 days ago. And there's also a historical newspapers part, which includes anything older than 2005. So they've got about 47 newspapers in there at this point. Hopefully they'll add more, but that's what they've got. So you want to be sure that you're in the right part of the site that you want to search. So if you know it's something before 2005, you need to make sure it says that historical newspapers part. And I'll show you in a second what that looks like. But this site does include over 300 daily and weekly newspapers from all around the state. And you can easily download a PDF image of any page of those newspapers that they have. They've also got some great video tutorials on their website that you can search for. And you can also see their newspaper title list as well. So this is what the site looks like. Again, looking at those training materials, that's going to be right up here, or that newspaper title link is right there. So you can explore that. And then this is the button I was talking about. So right here it says you can search newspapers from 2005 to 60 days ago. But if I want something older than 2005, I want to make sure to click on that button there. So again, to get to it, go to apl.org and select that Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers. And then we can go into the resource, or you can get here through the BadgerLink site since this is a statewide resource. So again, right here, it's showing me these 2005 to 60 days ago. So if it is something from that time period, you can see what newspaper titles they have in here and do your search. If you want those historic newspapers, go ahead and click on that. And now it says you're searching historical newspapers. So that's what we want to do. So again, you can put in your search term over here. You can also browse through and see what newspaper titles they have and what date coverage they have. Go ahead and click my search button. This site sometimes does take a bit to load, depending on what you're searching for. It's just going to take its time today. Any questions in the meantime? There we go. So down here, it gives me the results, so I can kind of see that quick snapshot of it. And then right over here is where I can download that page. So this little button is the PDF button. I can also see it in the window over here. So if I click on this little arrow thing, it brings me that full image of that newspaper. It's a little more difficult to use, so you kind of just have to click around the page in order to zoom in. And then kind of click those arrows to go back out. So it's not as user-friendly as some of the other sites, but you do still get to see that over there. And you can print it from here as well. So sometimes it doesn't always work as nice, but it allows you to download or print, or you can do like a PDF, or you can email it, all kinds of options there. And again, to go to other results, you just kind of click on those images down here, and it's going to show you on the page where it's highlighted usually. So all the way down here is where that result is. You can also see sometimes it gives you this error and you don't realize, like you might think, oh, there's only 4 results for that name. Well, it says your search was intentionally stopped because your search criteria is too broad. So you really want to play around with what you're searching in here. Instead of searching that just last name, search somebody's full name and see what results you get. Or narrow down by a specific date range. So you can choose a custom date range or a newspapers before this date or newspapers within certain time periods, or filter by a specific county within the state in order to make it more relevant and make sure you're getting all of those results. Again, refer to these training resources and the newspaper title lists for more information on how to use this site. There are some newspaper collections on Family Search. So we've talked quite a bit about Family Search. We're going to talk a lot more in depth about Family Search next month. But just quickly, I'll show you how to go into Family Search to find those newspapers. So you want to, of course, sign into your free Family Search account. If you go under Search and go under Records, what I like to do, of course, you can search by your ancestor's name, but then you're going to get all kinds of different records. If I know I'm just searching for newspaper related stuff, I go under the Find a Collection. And what you can do is you can just type in like obituary or start typing it, and you can see, oh, they've got some for Arizona, they've got some British newspaper archives, they've got some California ones, some Canada ones. So you can kind of see the specific collection title, and then if you click on it, it'll give you some more information. So if I'm searching for somebody during this time period in a Hawaiian Island newspaper, it might include this. I also wanted to point out this how to use the collection. So I like to kind of skim through this or read this to tell me a little bit more about how to use this specific area or what it includes. So it kind of gives you a little snapshot of what it includes. It gives me a sample image. So if I search, I can actually find this obituary for this person in Family Search completely for free. So if I go back over here, oops, my Zoom window's bothering me, there we go. If I go over here and I search that last name, I can see there's actually newspaper listings in here. It's gonna tell me, excuse me. So it's gonna give me that actual it's gonna give me that actual clipping. It's not great about certain ones don't always tell you what newspaper or what date it's in. Sometimes over here you can find information like where it might be from, but this one, unfortunately, we just have no citation information about where it's coming from. But at least you get that information that is their obituary. So there's not a whole lot of newspapers on Family Search, but some of those collections are things that you can search through. Next up is our Newspaper Source Plus. So this is another database that you have access to for free from the library. So this includes full text access to nearly 500 major US newspapers, excuse me, and more than 600 international newspapers. What I mean by full text is it's kind of just a transcript of the article, and you don't get that actual image of the newspaper like we've seen up until this point with the other databases. So it's just going to be the text of an article. Some titles include USA Today, Washington Post, all these other big national and international newspapers. The date coverage is going to vary depending on what title it is. Some go back to the 1960s, some might only go to the 90s. It really is varied. So this is where you can search. So in that search box, you can type in any keyword like your ancestor's name right here. There's also a publication finder where you can type in that newspaper title on the screen and see what date coverage there is, and then search within that newspaper. So I'll show you how to do that quickly. So again, go to the APL website, go to Newspaper Source Plus, then you can go in here. So if I click on this publication finder, it's going to pull up a certain area, and I can type in like Star Tribune. So now I can see that's a result here. And now I can see a little bit of information about it, and I can see, oh, in Newspaper Source Plus, they have it from February of 2006 to yesterday. Or if we have access to this other database that's Points of View, they also have it for that same time period. Or maybe instead of the Star Tribune, I meant the Tribune Star, and now it shows me again that date coverage that they would have. And then you can go right within it. And now I can search within it. So now it's saying, searching within this Terre Haute, Indiana newspaper, I can now search within by that ancestor I'm looking for or whatever keyword I want to look for. And now I can see the title of that article, that date, and then if I want to get that article, I just click on it and click on online full text. It's going to give me just that transcript. So again, we're not seeing the actual image of the newspaper, but it's giving me all the text from that newspaper. Right here, I can print a copy of it or download a copy of it as well. So again, this is more of the major newspapers, but you never know what kind of relevant results you're going to find on your ancestors, especially those ones that lived in those bigger cities or internationally. You can also just do a general search on this main search screen. So again, you can just type in that last name you're looking for. So I can see all about an activist who burned flags and read that article. So I can, again, click on that online full text and see the actual result, see what date it came from, what newspaper it came from, all that great stuff, all right on that page. If we go back to the results, you can also sort this. So again, up here, we've got, if you want to see the last 12 months or the past 5 years or the past 10 years, or you want to filter it by a source type or filter it by relevance or that newest date or the oldest date, you can also do that here. So maybe I want to see the oldest stuff that they have. Now I can see, oh, it only goes back to 2002 for this specific result. The next one is our US News Stream. So this is another free database where you again have that full text access to current and archival United States titles, dating all the way back to the 1980s, which doesn't feel like that long ago, but maybe you still find some relevant results in there. Again, a lot of big titles. So New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Boston Globe. But the great part for us locally is it's got over 80 Gannett titles, like the Post-Crescent, like the Green Bay Press-Gazette, so local titles. But the coverage, again, is going to vary by the specific title. So for example, for Post-Crescent, they only have it on there from 1999 to actually today's newspaper. You can actually see what articles from today are in the newspaper right on this database. So just like the other newspaper database, you enter those search terms here, like that ancestor name or the house address number or whatever business you're looking for. Or again, you can click on that publication tab and type in the newspaper title on the screen, see what the date coverage is, and search within that. So quickly, I'll show you an example of that. So again, you can enter your search term here. They also have an advanced search option up here. So for that Boolean kind of search where you want to include certain titles or search certain words together, use that one. But again, they've got ways that you can modify your search here. You can narrow it down to just newspapers because they do have magazines and blogs and other things. You can do a specific date range here. Just be sure to update it. And then down below, they've got, that kind of date range or location range where you can also narrow it down by a specific state. And then again, it's just going to give you the text of that document. So you're not going to get that actual image. So right up here, it would say, oh, it's part of this magazine, this issue number. If we find a newspaper here, let's see. Here's the Wisconsin State Journal. So now I can see what date, location, and page number right there. It also allows you to save it as a PDF so that it can download that PDF with that source information. And then again, you can save it and see all that article right there. So the source information is all the way kind of towards the bottom here. So you can see Wisconsin State Journal on a specific date and the page number. Again, you can also search by a specific publication. So if I click on publications, I can type in that Post Crescent. And now I can see, oh, it covers from January 1st, 1999 to today. And then if I want to, I can search just within that publication. And now it's going to show me, like, here's an obituary from April of 2008. So you can find obituaries in here. And then again, I can save it if I want to, or just write down that source information as well. If I wanted to come into the library to get the actual image of the newspaper, I could do that just by using that information. Next up, we've got Internet Archive. So this does include some digital newspapers, including some Post Crescent coverage, but it varies. It's not complete coverage. So for example, for the Post Crescent, they only have issues randomly from 1860 to 1972, not complete coverage, but they have about 10,000 digitized issues of the newspaper. More than just newspapers are on here. They've got digitized books, audio, video, all kinds of great stuff on this site that we'll dive into more in a future session. But today we're just going to focus on the newspapers. So when you see an example in just a few minutes, you'll see there's different options that you can select in that search bar. So if you select keyword search, there's a search text contents option. So this is going to search within all the text. So that's something where you want to put your ancestor's name. So if there is a relevant article within like the Post Crescent, it's going to pull up those specific dates and images that that name is going to appear in. If you use the other option called metadata search, that only searches like a library record, like a title or an author. So if I put in my ancestor's name, it might give me 0 results unless my ancestor happened to be an author of something. But this is where I'd put something like a newspaper name. If I want to find the Post Crescent, I want to make sure that metadata search is on for it. Or if I'm looking for a specific book title, I want to do the metadata search first. We do have a link on the APL website where it gives you direct access to the Post Crescent archive that's on here. But I'm just going to show you how to go into the site in general. So it's just archive.org. It's a completely free site. You don't have to be a library member. Anybody can use it. So right here under search, this is where it's going to give you those options. So that metadata search or that text content search, that's where I was talking about. So for example, if I want to find that post-crescent stuff, that's where I'm going to type it and make sure it says that metadata part. Helps if I spell it right as well. So now it's going to show me, hey, here's all this post-crescent archive. So I can go ahead and click on that. And I can see, oh, there's almost like 10,000 results. Now up here, they've got another search bar and you've got the search text content. So now I want to switch it and now I'm going to search for a specific name. And now I can search within this and it's going to give me those results of that name. Again, I might want to put quotations marks around it if I just want to search that specific name together and not every instance of the first name and every instance of the last name. So now you can kind of hover over it, get a little snapshot of it. If I want to go into the actual image to see the newspaper, I can just click on it. And then again, I can zoom in, zoom out. And now I can see the article is right here. If I scroll down over here, I can download a PDF of it, or there's a couple different image files or other file types. I usually go for a PDF because it's the easiest to use. Most people can pull up a PDF. The bummer is it takes the whole entire issue and not just the one page that you want. I think I can do a single page somehow, but or again, if we start at the Internet Archive main page, instead of doing that metadata search, I can just do the search text contents right here. And now I can put in that name again. So maybe I want to put my ancestor's name, make sure that the second option selected. And now I can see other things that he might be included in. So there's an annual catalog of Lawrence students, there's Hamilton College, there's Pioneers of Outagamie County. So they've got all these different books. Here's a newspaper result. So again, there's more than just newspapers on here. And now I can search within all of these and see the relevant results. You can also narrow it down by specific years, specific collections, all kinds of great stuff over here on the left-hand side. We've only got a few more, but any questions so far before we move on to the last little bit? Someone says in Family Search, which we talked about a few minutes ago, the citation is sometimes way at the bottom right-hand side. So be aware of that. It says click on each result arrow to take you to the next instance in the issue. So try that out, see if it works for you. Where is the link to download the handout? That's going to be right here. Any questions from you guys in person before we move on? Yeah.
In Wisconsin, when Wisconsin was just made a state and previous to that, if you go down to Port Washington and that area, that was heavily settled by a lot of the German immigrants.
Okay.
Do you know whether or not there were newspapers available at that particular time?
So, like around when Wisconsin became a state or pre-statehood, were there any German language newspapers? For that, I would go to Chronicling America and look at the newspaper directory, which we talked about in the last session. So you can refer back to that, or at the end, after people have questions, I can show you how to do that quick. Yeah, question?
I have ancestors that lived in Seymour, and I did do some research on that, but they said they had fire. I went to the library there. They said that they had a fire most of the newspapers were destroyed.
Yeah, so sometimes you might come across that unfortunately newspapers didn't survive. Like there were way more Appleton newspapers, for example, than what we have access to on microfilm. It's just, unfortunately, maybe they were only a short run newspaper and somebody didn't think to save it, or maybe they're missing issues because they only saved so many issues.
Did you find any,
You might find some offline. For Seymour specifically, I would check the Wisconsin State Historical Society, because if they're going to have anything for the smaller communities that the city doesn't have or the town doesn't have, that would be my first place to stop.
Thank you.
All right. If you aren't familiar, we also have an obituary index at our library. So this is a searchable database of all your Appleton area ancestors. So in here are going to be obituaries, death notices, and news stories related to death that would appear in the Post-Crescent and the newspapers before the Post-Crescent. You can search by name, by date, or by date range. It is not a complete index. We are continually adding more, adding current issues, adding historic entries. So if you don't happen to find your ancestor in there, check back, or you can, of course, reach out to me and I can see about if that time period is included in our index yet, or if it's not, how I might help you locate whatever obituary or death notice you're looking for. So you can use the information from that database to either come into the library and get that actual obituary from the microfilm, or even right from the website, you can click on request a copy and we will email you a copy of it completely free of charge, usually within a week or so, depending on how many requests we have in a given week. So I'll show you how to access this. It's really simple, just apl.org/obit, or if you just go to that main page, it's one of our popular ones that you can jump to right away. So right here, I can enter in my last name, first name, maiden name, or I can search for a specific date or a specific date range. As I start typing a name, it's going to give me options. So now I can see, oh, if there's any misspellings, like maybe they added an extra I in there, I can see that that might be a misspelling of that name. I can add a first name or anything else if I want to, otherwise I can just click submit. So now this is going to give me a snapshot of some of the results. So you might notice some of them have a blank first name. It's because at certain times, women's first names aren't always listed in the newspaper, unfortunately. But you can see maiden names, for example, and maybe it's like, hey, that maiden name sounds familiar to me. If I want to click on view details, it's going to give me a little bit more information. It's going to be say, oh yeah, this is Mrs. John Still. All right, this is the one I'm looking for. So I can see little snapshots of information that are going to be included in that obituary that might lead me to say, yep, this is the person I'm looking for, or no, that doesn't sound familiar to me. So right here, I can see what newspaper, what date, and what page it's included in. So again, I can use that to come here to the library, get the microfilm, or again, I can click this request a copy. I can put in my information, put in my email address, and then like I said, usually within a week or so, we will email you a copy of this obituary then, completely free of charge. Just don't send us like 50 at once, that's a lot. Pace yourself a little bit. But it's really easy to use this. Again, you just search for a specific name and see what results you get. If information's blank in there, it's because it might be blank in the actual notice. So usually death notices, we don't get a whole lot of data on. We might have a death date or a name, and that's about it. We might have an age of somebody. Sometimes they're very basic. Sometimes the obituaries might only be a line or two or a paragraph. It really depends on the time period. Of course, we aren't the only library that has an obituary index. Some libraries also index other things other than obituaries. So, for example, locally we have the Winnifox Vital Records area where you can search obituaries and funeral notices. They've got all kinds of other great vital record information for these specific counties. So again, you can search by in here and see what results they've got for that area. You can also search for local libraries in a specific area. So depending on where that newspaper is, you might want to Google libraries near Orlando, Florida, and then I can see what results they might have. So libraries near Orlando. Now I can see, oh, there's the Orlando Library, there's the Southeast branch, there's, all kinds of other stuff. If I zoom in or zoom out on this map, it gives me more options. So now I can kind of hunt around. Maybe my ancestors lived in this area of Orlando and I can see, hey, there's 2 local libraries that I can now contact or explore their website to see what resources they might have available to me, even if I live in Wisconsin and don't plan to visit to Florida anytime soon. There's also, of course, state libraries and genealogy societies, historical societies who might also have indexes or resources for you. So again, go to Google or your favorite search engine, search something like Illinois State Library, and you see what results they've got. You've got a phone number here or an address here. You can explore their website. Or I can search Illinois Genealogy Society, and again, I've got a search result here. I can go into their site and see what resources they might have. Like, oh, there's a death certificate lookup service that they have, or they have some webinars, or I can see they've got databases in here. So I can see, if I can search any of this without becoming a member, or how do I get access to them if I'm not a member, or should I become a member to get access to them? Each state, each location is going to be different on what they offer. If it's a library and if they have an index, they're likely going to be able to provide you with a copy of that article or that obituary that you're looking for. Sometimes it's completely free, like we do at APL. Sometimes they might charge you a small fee or say, hey, we can do this, but if you're asking for like 10 different things, maybe you would like to donate some money to the library because it does take staff time to look up this information for you. Or maybe if you're able to visit that location, now you've got a listing of all the things that you want to look up when you go to that library. Or maybe if you have access to the microfilm for the Wisconsin Historical Society, we can try to interlibrary loan it for you, which we talked all about doing in our first session. So again, refer back to that recording to figure out how you can look at maybe a Seymour newspaper right here in Appleton without having to travel to Seymour or having to travel to Madison to look at it. Of course, some local newspapers have been digitized and might be on sites other than a library site. It might be a library site, it might be an archive site, a genealogy or historical society. So some examples here, I've got a great site. It's a multiple organization partnership. I have a lot of Oconto County, Wisconsin ancestors. So Digitize Oconto County, one of the best resources for me because it has all these great newspaper titles. So I can just go in here and search my ancestor's name and see all these awesome results that they've got digitized here for me. So if you have Oconto County, Wisconsin ancestors, check it out. Or there's something like through the Wisconsin State or the Washington State Library, if I could read, where they've got a bunch of digitized collections. So you can search within those collections. You can see what titles they include, what counties, what dates. So if you have Washington ancestors, like look through that site and see what digital newspapers they've got digitized on there. Remember SLAM, so that stands for societies, libraries, archives, and museums. You want to search for what's going to be available in that geographic region where you're searching for your ancestors. If your ancestors lived in Appleton, you're searching societies, libraries, archives, and museums in Appleton. If your ancestors lived in Orlando, Florida, you're searching for the societies, libraries, archives, and museums in Orlando. So that's what you want to do in order to find where the resources are for you. Again, some might be free. Some things you might need a library card in that area for, or to live into that state to access, or maybe you need to hire a researcher who is in that local area to research for you if you can't make a trip yourself. A couple other newspaper sites. I know we're getting to be an hour and a half here, but we're almost done. So there's a site called Fulton History newspaper site. It has over 57 million newspapers from around the US and Canada, but heavily focused more on New York State since that's where it's based. Not the easiest site to use, but it's completely free. I've got a link in your handout where it has a video where you can watch how to use the site. Because again, we're running out of time. We can't do a demonstration of every single site. But that one's a great one to use for around the US and Canada. There's also the Google News Archives. They aren't adding any more newspapers on here, but you can still search through what's on here from the past. So it's a link in your handout where they've got all these different newspapers in here. Like a crazy amount of newspapers. Some of them are just a few issues, some of them are a lot of issues. So you can see all the different things that they've got in here. And again, I can search just that name within here. And now I can see, oh, here's a article from this certain area. Sometimes it gives you a not relevant result, like how is my last name connected to a multimedia phone? Sometimes you need to hunt around. Maybe it's somewhere else on the page that for some reason it's giving me an odd result. Or I can just go on to the next one and now I can see, there it is. So again, zoom in, zoom out. You can print it here as well, save it here as well, save it to your library. We've also got a great site called the Ancestor Hunt. So they have research links for all around the United States, broken down by state. They also have some special US collections for newspapers and some listings for international countries. The site has a lot more than just newspaper links, but if you go to resources, you can see all the great things they have. But the one thing I'm going to show you is the newspaper links. Sometimes they have a lot of ads that pop up because it's a free site. They need to pay for the site. But if you go to resources, newspaper links, scroll on down, they're giving you a lot of background information, but then again, you can click on the specific state you're looking for. And now I can scroll down and see all the different resources like, hey, Chronicling America, Hawaii ones, I can go right to there. Or I can look at all these different newspapers or see that there's Hawaiian language newspaper site that has these titles in it and those date coverage. So every state's got different collections that are going to be linking you to resources that are available all throughout the internet for that specific state. MyHeritage also released a newspaper site, I think it was a year or so ago. So you can search the site for free. It's called Old News, but in order to see the results, you need to pay to get a copy of the article, or you need to find the article somewhere else, or you need to have a MyHeritage Omni subscription, or do a 7-day free trial. So I can just quickly show you, you can search for free, like I said. So I can search my last name. And then I can see, hey, it says hospital Stope. That doesn't make sense. When I look at the actual image, it says ship. Well, that's not my last name, right? I scroll down here, it says Style, not Stilp, which is my last name. That's because digitized newspapers rely on what's called OCR. It's called Optical Character Recognition. And what this means is that a computer is reading what it thinks the newspaper says, and it could result in some errors for you. Although OCR has gotten a lot better in many recent years, some of the old newspapers are really faded, or they might be blurry, maybe they weren't microfilmed very well, or they have a really weird font, or maybe the OCR for that site just isn't great yet. There are, ones that are really difficult to read for OCR. So you might get those results that it thinks it says your last name and it's completely something different and random. So for example, here's an OCR text generated. So it's thinking it's saying, a certain word here, like it said, this is Vincent. You can see over here on the actual image on the right, it's saying Vincent, but because it's a little blurry, it's thinking it's got a slash in it. So you might need to get creative about what you're searching. You can see some of these, it just looks like it's completely made up characters. It's not an actual word that you would be able to see over here because it's a little bit blurry. So to combat that bad OCR, I recommend you don't just search for the name of the person. Of course, all the demonstrations I did today were just names because that's what's easiest. But think about other ways to search for your ancestor. You know, you maybe want to search 5, 6, 7 or more different ways to find more results. Think about searching their address or their birth date or a marriage date or another unique thing about them, like what Civil War regiment they were part of or what company they worked for. You can also browse page by page. So like if you know that they died on a specific date, September 1st, 1922, I might start searching on September 1st and go issue by issue, page by page, and see just quickly, can I see any mention of their name in it if I tried searching and didn't get a result for them? I've got a lot of different ways to search. So for example, here are just a few options. You can search by their first, middle, and last name. You can search by their last name, comma, first name. You can search with a middle, without a middle initial. You can search their first initial of their first name with their last name. You can do an initial for their first name and middle name. You can shorten their first name with or without a middle initial. So George, for example, frequently abbreviated as GEO, for example. Maybe they went by their last name, so search, or maybe they went by their middle name, so search for their middle name and their last name. Maybe they had a nickname. Search by their spouse's name in multiple different ways. Search just by that surname only. Of course, it's going to work a lot better with names that aren't very common. Like if you search Jones or Brown or Johnson or Smith, you're going to get way too many results. But you can always use those Boolean searches to try to narrow them down, or think of other ways to narrow it down, like by location, by date, a certain time period, like a month. Don't forget about alternative spellings. You know, maybe they transposed the N and the E on Jones and they spelt it differently, or maybe they forgot the S because it was a typo. So think about those different ways that you can search for a specific name. There might be an Americanized name or an English version of a name, like Schwartz in German is black, so search both Schwartz and black. Or maybe they have a dropped prefix for those people that have like O'Connell, maybe they forgot that O in the apostrophe, so search that way. I always also search the names of other people related to them, like their parents' names, their mother's maiden name, their spouse, their children, their siblings, their aunts, their uncles, anybody who you think is going to be mentioned in their obituary. I found so many relevant articles just by searching multiple different ways like this. So don't just narrow yourself to just searching by their name. I'm sure if you're not thinking it in your head already, you're probably thinking, well, which one of these is best? Again, it's going to depend on where your ancestors lived. Where are you researching? What time period? The best site for you guys is going to be completely different than the best site for me because we all have different locations and time periods where we're searching. So use them all. They're all great sites. Of course, some are better than others. Some are more user-friendly than others, like we saw today. But each site has different newspapers. There might be a little bit of overlap in some of them, like the Post-Crescent is on newspapers.com and Newspaper Archive, but there's more coverage on newspapers.com, which is the paid edition. Again, each site has pros and cons. It can get costly for those paid subscriptions. So what I always do is I cycle on, cycle off. So I might pay 6 months for a certain site and then not have my subscription for a year or two and buy a different subscription in the meantime when I don't have a subscription to newspapers.com. And then I'll make myself notes like, hey, next time you have access to Genealogy Bank, you're going to look up these titles or these names of people because you know Genealogy Bank has like the most Milwaukee newspapers and you don't want to pay for it right now, but maybe in 6 months you're going to pay for a month of it and search for all these names. In the meantime, use the free versions through the libraries or the free newspaper sites. Use those free trials or the free access times like they might have on newspapers.com. Try to interlibrary loan that microfilm, get it sent here to the library where you can browse it. And of course, always check the listing of what papers and what date coverage are included in a site before you decide to pay for that subscription to make sure it is worth your money and that it does have those newspapers that you're looking for in the time period that you're looking for. You can even use newspaper sites to try and reverse search article clippings that you might have inherited that you don't know where they came from. So maybe you don't have a date or a newspaper name attached to a clipping that your grandma saved and passed on to you. Well, search part of the headline or a few unique words in that clipping and see if you get a result on any of these online newspaper sites to see, can I find an exact replica of this article so that I can find that newspaper name and that date and that page for my citation. That's what I've got for you. Our next session is going to be next month on August 26th, same time, 1 p.m. Central. We're going to talk all about family search. We dived a little bit into it a few months ago when we talked about searching in family search. I showed you a little bit about searching in newspapers in family search, but we're going to dive a lot deeper in August. In the meantime, we've got our Find Your Ancestors series, which is our other genealogy series. Our next session for that, Thursday, August 14th at 6 p.m. Central. We're going to be talking about reconstructing World War I Army service records with Linda Debbie. So please join us for that. That's all I've got for you. Any other questions that I didn't answer yet?
You want here on,
Thursday it's here and online, so you can join it here in person at the library or on Zoom, as well as our next genealogy jumpstart. So I try to make all of them hybrid if I can. Any questions from my online folks here? Thank you. All right, well, if there was anything I didn't show in depth enough, or you have a question about how to use a certain aspect of the site, I'm happy to hang out for a little bit and show you anything else. Otherwise, that's it.